There's a light in the sky, rising in the air. There's a feeling so strong. It's time to light the fire, like a bright shining light. Learn, getting more out of life. Love, sharing time with friends, feeling so strong.
Yes, hello, welcome to the House of Wellness. I'm Luke Darcy, here with my partner in all things to do with health and feeling your best, and that's Jo Stanley. Welcome, Jo.
Hey, Darcy, it's so lovely to be here. And just when we thought it was beginning to feel safe, or safer anyway, the world has given us another stay right where you are warning.
Yeah, Jo, that's right. Well, life in Victoria has taken a turn with an increase in the number of COVID cases. It started with a number of suburbs being locked down. Then thousands of residents in commission housing were told they couldn't leave their homes. And now the state is in lockdown with the Victorian border closed.
This is take two, Darcy. There were predictions that a second wave could happen, and here we are. It's a big reminder that this is not over and that people have to abide by the government directive and stay away from each other.
Yeah, Jo, the messaging around social distancing and hygiene has been very consistent. There's also the ongoing debate about face masks, to wear them or not to wear them. Today, we try to get some clarity around that.
Wellness warrior Tiffany Hall shows us how to bounce not back, but forward after having a baby. Plus, a US dentist reveals groundbreaking research into vaping.
That's all coming up very shortly, Jo. But right now, Adelaide eye doctor James Mcintyre has spent around 3 decades fighting blindness in some of the world's poorest countries. His incredible work saw him named the Australian of the Year, Jo, in 2020.
The inspirational Aussie is using this year's accolade to fight a new war on type 2 diabetes. The disease affects 1 in 10 Australians and can cause blindness. And the number one enemy in Dr. Mcintyre's sights is sugar. Congratulations on being named Australian of the Year. How did that feel to receive such an honour?
Thank you, Jo. It was an amazing feeling, an amazing honour, of course. And I must say it was a big surprise. I wasn't expecting to win it.
You did receive the award for the incredible work that you've done for so long in preventing and curing blindness, both here and around the world. What motivated you to dedicate yourself to that particular cause?
One of the most profound and one of the most confronting experiences that I had, which was really a big driver for this, was a childhood blindness study that I was involved in 2007 in Myanmar. And the findings of that study were so confronting. We found that nearly half of the kids at schools for the blind across the country had blindness that could have been prevented or treated. To be surrounded by children who were blind from measles. So we found that measles was the leading cause of blindness. So to be surrounded by children who were irreversibly blind, horribly disfigured, and had a blindness that would have been terribly painful when they experienced it, was one of the most disturbing experiences of my clinical life, and it was a really big driving force for me to set up Sight for All and to continue working in this field.
And now you've turned your attention to type 2 diabetes. Why is that?
This was a disease that was virtually non-existent back in the 60s, and now in Australia we're seeing something like 250 new cases every single day. And type 2 diabetes is a blinding, maiming and deadly disease which is impacting on something like 1.7 million people in Australia every single year. So it's getting close to 10% of the population.
So what are the symptoms of type 2 diabetes?
So some of the early symptoms would be thirst, excessive urination, fatigue, headache, frequent infections, and also poorly healing sores or ulcers on the feet and lower legs. So these are some of the symptoms, but I think what's particularly disturbing about this disease are the complications. And being an eye surgeon, the way that I was drawn into this was because of its blinding complications. It's now the leading cause of blindness amongst working age adults in this country.
And how often does diabetes 2 cause blindness?
Every year I'm actually seeing and treating more and more patients who have sight-threatening eye disease due to type 2 diabetes. So this is consistent with the fact that it's a growing epidemic. What I have seen are, though, the life-changing consequences of the disease. And blindness and amputation are the 2 major complications that people are most scared of. And I have a patient who went to bed one evening and woke up the next morning blind in both eyes. And to this day, he's still blind. He's now had 9 amputations of his left lower leg. He's also had a heart attack. So sadly, as a doctor, as a specialist, I'm seeing the complications at the end, which unfortunately, when it reaches this stage, are often not reversible. So that's why I'm such a strong advocate for a disease, a dietary disease, which is preventable. We should not be seeing this in our society. And as doctors, we should not be dealing with the life-changing and life-threatening complications of a preventable dietary disease.
So what's the solution?
Firstly, it's raising awareness. And it's raising awareness so that we are personally aware of the toxic and addictive nature of sugar. And we're seeing checkouts in supermarkets and many stores that don't need to be selling sugary products, which are truly preying on our addiction.
So if I'm someone who is pre-diabetic or already has type 2 diabetes, what impact would removing sugar from my diet have?
Type 2 diabetes is preventable, firstly. That's important to realise. And it's reversible by being aware of the highly sugared products in our diet. I think it's also, if you have pre-diabetes or if you have insulin resistance, one of the other things you can do is engage what we call intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating.
And I think as a parent, health messages need to be way more clear for us when we're choosing what we give our kids, because we're already establishing an addiction in our young children.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, there's a very famous case, I think, from the United States of a 3-year-old child who had developed type 2 diabetes, had a diet which was very high in sugary drinks. So sugar is the one substance, the one drug, you could even call it, that we actually give to babies and to toddlers. And I think parents very often are not aware of this. And also I think throughout pregnancy, it's very important to be aware of the sugar consumption, because glucose can actually cross into the womb, into the fetus, and actually can be a driver of type 2 diabetes in people later in life. It can actually have metabolic consequences for the baby. So it's really important that pregnant mothers are aware of this, and it's also very important for them to be monitored throughout their pregnancy for what we call gestational diabetes.
Dr. Mukey reminds me a lot of Fred Hollows, who was named the Australian of the Year 20 years ago for his incredible work in restoring eyesight for thousands of people around the world.
He's most definitely following in the footsteps of Fred Hollows, who is also the kind of person who just got things done. He pushed for change and put in motion a legacy to end avoidable blindness. And Dr. Mukey's organisation, Sight for All, is doing a similar thing. Volunteer Aussie eye specialists train doctors overseas, plus he himself devotes around 40 hours a week to the cause. He's just so deserving of this year's award.
He sure is, Joe, and National Diabetes Week kicks off today, and we'll continue to look at the disease our 2020 Australian of the Year is tackling head-on later in the show. But up next, celebrity trainer Tiffany Hall shows us how she bounced forward after having her baby right here on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. Well, one of the nicest people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting is fitness trainer Tiffany Hall. Always great to catch up with Tiff, Joe. She strikes for me a great balance between health, fitness and enjoying life at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. She is one of the most positive, uplifting people that you can be with, and she's very inspiring, I think, around your own fitness goals.
Yeah, Tiff is not only a black belt in Taekwondo, author and fitness guru, she's also mum to Arnold, who she had in 2017 with radio and TV star Ed Cavalier.
Well, you might think this gladiator mum sailed through pregnancy and snapped right back to her superhuman shape. But like most of us, Tiff faced challenges and changes after having a baby, and it's so great to hear someone with her background speak so honestly about the pressures on first-time mums.
I've always really loved fitness. My parents were fitness instructors, martial arts instructors, and it was in my blood because I saw them making other people feel more confident and empowered. It's always something that makes me feel strong, and no matter how hard life gets, you feel that strength in training and that resilience and that confidence, and it sort of helps you to deal with other things in life.
Following in her parents' footsteps, Tiff Hall has inspired countless Aussies to fall in love with fitness through her online health program, Tiff XO.
Pick up your band and slide it up onto your thighs.
But all the workouts in the world couldn't prepare her for the hurdles of pregnancy.
When I fell pregnant, I always thought I'm going to have a fit pregnancy, I'm going to continue to exercise, but I had a very sick pregnancy. I couldn't exercise at all. I put on 30 kilos. I couldn't do anything. And after I had Arnold, I didn't recognize my body. It was 30 kilos heavier. I had lost my core strength. I had injuries from the birth. And there was a lot of pressure to bounce back to a size 6, size 8 from media, from Instagram, from everything. I took a photo of myself and I still had the brown line down my stomach. I was breastfeeding, I had a big tummy, and you know, my body had changed so much. And I remember I showed my husband that photo and I just broke down in tears. I was like, oh my God, this person is a trainer. I'm never going to be able to do what I love again, Ed. Like, I will never be fit enough or strong enough. I just feel broken in every way, let alone the sleep deprivation and all of the things that come with that first baby and the shock that your life has changed forever. And Ed said to me, you know what? I don't think you've ever looked so beautiful. And it makes me emotional now to think about it. But you know, he was saying, like, that body has given birth to a child. You can look at it as being different, or you can look at it as being the strongest it's ever been. And I thought, you know what? I am strong. I am strong in all these ways that I never knew I could be strong. And I'm going to focus on that. You know what I can make? A space rover that is half space rover and half boat. Now, I didn't want to sacrifice the 4th trimester and that baby bubble by going to the gym, and I didn't want to sacrifice my milk supply. I was breastfeeding at the time by dieting. And most of all, I didn't want to hurt my relationship with exercise. It was something that I had always loved and enjoyed. So instead of bouncing back, I decided to bounce forward and to put out there that my body was different.
Rather than giving in to the pressures of social media, Tiff used her own online presence to send a more positive message. Prioritising self-care and recovery, she took her time over the next year, gently easing back into a healthy and enjoyable fitness routine.
It wasn't about training and smashing myself. It was very, very gradual. Oh. Can you show me some punches? And it just resonated with women all over. And some squats. It brought all these mothers to the program, and we got fit together, and many of them were pregnant when I was pregnant, and then we got fit after we had the babies together, and it's just been like one big mothers group, really.
This one? Can you press this one for me?
One of many mums inspired by Tiff's self-care approach is mother of 3, Vanya Jurezic.
After having my 3rd child, I definitely felt the pressure because with the social media and everything around, there are mums with flat stomachs pretty much as soon as they pop out the baby. And to me, that was never realistic. So I came across Tiff XO, and that's when I fell in love with exercise. She actually made me fall in love with it. And I still don't have my pre-baby weight, which I'm not obsessed about. I think it's important to embrace your body, love who you are, appreciate what your body's done, and just do your best.
I always say that self-love is like a good loaf of bread. It has to be baked fresh every single day. You wake up and you have to be like, oh my gosh, you know, you can be so self-critical, but every day you have to bake that fresh loaf of bread. And it's very, very important practice. Oh, it's a yummy one.
Isn't that refreshing? Her realisation about her new life and the way she went with it is just so real. I love that she encourages new mums to care for themselves and embrace their new bodies rather than rush back to the gym.
Yeah, and Tiff's new mission is to get us to focus on self-care as we come out of isolation. Her online program, Tiff XO, is offering a free 4-week ISO reset plan to help improve our mood, energy levels and fitness. Encourage you to check it out. It's fantastic. Although, as we've seen in recent weeks, Jo, coming out of ISO isn't proving to be that smooth a ride for some of us.
Well, the recent surge in cases in Victoria has slowed the easing of restrictions. Border closures, suburb closures. It's really time to get serious and heed the warnings. Just don't be complacent. Keep on social distancing.
Well, one of the most confusing messages has been around face masks. Should we be wearing them like a lot of people seem to be doing overseas? Do they actually protect you and people around you?
Well, so far the advice in Australia has been that you don't need to wear a face mask. However, the World Health Organisation is now recommending that people over 60 or with health issues should wear a medical-grade mask when out in public, while other people should wear a 3-layer fabric mask on public transport, in shops, at work, basically anywhere that you're going to be exposed to groups of people.
So what is right, Joe? That's the question. Professor Rayner Mcintyre is a globally renowned infectious disease expert whose clinical trial on face masks was a world first, and I caught up with her to filter out some of the facts from the fiction.
Yes, initially there was a lot of concern about the lack of supply. There's been a global shortage of masks and respirators. So there was concern that we didn't want the available stocks to be used up by the general public and leaving our healthcare workers unprotected. But in Australia, we certainly do have adequate supplies now.
And Professor, can I just ask you, how do masks fundamentally help?
So there's two different ways in which masks in the community can help. If you are infected and don't know it, then when you wear a mask, it stops the virus from getting out there in your breathing, and your just normal breathing can exhale. You can exhale viruses. And then if you're well, it can also protect you from inhaling or being sprayed by someone else who's sneezed or coughed around you.
So, Professor, coming back to the mask, is there a certain type of mask that you would recommend to help stop the spread?
So for the general public, I think if you get a surgical mask is probably good. Cloth masks, there's a lot less evidence around. If you wear a cloth mask that has multiple layers, at least 3 layers, and is made of a water-resistant fabric on the outside, probably that will give you some protection as well. But there's more evidence around surgical masks.
And Professor, is it confusing for people watching a show like the House of Wellness, and the Centre for Disease Control in America seems to have a different policy to the World Health Organisation? The President seems to have a different policy from his staff. To make sense of what is real and what is not in these times feels very, very tricky. How do you answer that?
Yeah, I totally empathise with how difficult it is for people when there's so many conflicting policies and messages out there. And, the reason for that is often not the evidence, but other considerations. Like, in the beginning, the strong messages we were hearing from the US CDC as well as WHO was, do not wear a mask in the public. Do not wear one. Only wear one if you're sick. And both WHO and the CDC have done a complete about-face and changed that guidance now. So, but I think the initial guidance was actually based on a concern for lack of supplies for healthcare workers, which comes back to the point that guidance and guidelines should be based on evidence, not on any other consideration like supplies, because when you do that, it just ends up, being confusing, and then you've got to backtrack and change your policy and so on.
Yeah, and so you should wear masks when you can't effectively socially distance. Is that the time that we should be thinking about it?
I personally don't think that masks and social distancing are mutually exclusive choices. I think they're both necessary interventions, and the more of these interventions that you use, the more protected you'll be.
So, Joe, after hearing what Professor Mcintyre had to say, what do you think about the recent calls to make face masks compulsory right here in Victoria or anywhere else that a spike in cases occurs?
Well, I think what I crave for is a consistency of message, but if there is a spike in an area and we're not even really sure how or why that's happened, then surely a mask is just a really sensible thing to do. It's not hard to wear it.
Fair point. Well, from staying socially safe to the somewhat antisocial habit of vaping, some amazing revelations about the effects of e-cigarettes. That's coming up next, right here on the House of Wellness. Welcome back. You're watching the House of Wellness. Over the past decade, e-cigarettes or vaping has taken off in a huge way, either as a way to give up smoking or as an alternative to smoking. For me, though, Joe, I can't help but be a bit disturbed by the marketing and some of the flavours that you hear. Fruit tingle or a donut flavour seems to be targeted pretty directly at kids for me.
Yeah, that's absolutely concerning. We don't want anything that is attracting children to it, but I do know people who have been able to give up cigarettes because of the vaping, and then they stopped vaping and in the end weren't smoking anything. So that's a positive.
That has to be a positive. But
Yeah.
the laws governing vaping in Australia are still pretty cloudy, excuse the pun. It's illegal to sell e-cigarettes or refill fluids that contain nicotine, yet people can import up to a 3-month supply if it's prescribed by your doctor or being used therapeutically, say to help you quit smoking, as you described, Joe.
Well, this might give some insight. A study by world-leading oral health researcher Dr. Panima Kumar revealed some results that might help you make up your mind. What were the main findings of the study?
The first thing we found was that e-cigarettes create this high stress environment within our bacterial communities. You know, normally these bacteria live very happily in our mouths. They're very quiet, they're very content communities, they're very calm. And these bacteria respond to the stress by doing two things. One, they produce what are known as reactive oxygen molecules. So this is what, the ozone danger, like when you go out to this on a hot sunny day outside, you have ozone. That is something, a reactive oxygen molecule is very similar to that. The other thing these bacteria do is they create these mucousy slime layers around themselves, and they encase themselves in these igloo-like bubbles. And so the body doesn't recognize these bacteria that are covered in slime as friends anymore. And because these bacteria have covered themselves in slime, the next group of bacteria that come and live on them, colonize on them, are a completely different set of bacteria. And so suddenly the community picture has changed and our body doesn't recognize this anymore. And so the immune system goes completely crazy. And so we went on to ask, okay, what in this vapor causes the slime layer? But what we found was it's that vehicle. So everything in e-juice, the nicotine, the flavoring agent, everything is suspended in this vehicle, which is glycerol or glycol. So the vehicle seems to be the biggest catalyst for this change that we were seeing. And you know what else we found? 6 months, 6 to 12 months of e-cigarette use can cause this change. It takes smoking 5 years to cause this change, but the change happens with e-cigarette users within 6 to 12 months of using e-cigarettes.
Are there other symptoms then that someone who is vaping will experience because of that unhappy bacteria community?
A part of what I do is plastic surgery in the mouth. And many of the surgery are done in very young, healthy individuals, 23, 25, 30-year-olds. And what we're finding is vapors' wounds heal very slowly and very poorly. And so we've started looking at that. And what we're finding is that the bacterial communities that allow you wound or promote quick wound healing seem to be absent in vapors. This is very early results. We're not even ready to publish it yet, but we've just started looking at it. The other thing that others have reported is that it causes a lot of dry mouth, very, very dry mouth in people. And there are a couple of studies that have come out that I've seen in conferences that folks have published, which shows that vapors seem to have higher number of cavities in their mouths.
Does vaping cause gum disease?
Vaping was introduced to the United States only in 2009. And, it hasn't been in vogue for more than, I want to say, 5-6 years. So if we're going to wait for vaping to cause gum disease and then to start studying it, we're going to have to wait another 20, 25 years. What we're finding are that at a molecular level, these vapors are already looking like people who have really established gum disease. It's just that by the time the whole thing comes together and causes something that I can see as a clinician, it's going to be a few more years.
We often hear that e-cigarettes are better for you or healthier than traditional cigarettes. Is that misleading?
Quitting smoking can never be wrong, So quitting smoking is certainly good. However, I question when you use e-cigarettes to quit smoking, whether you're actually, whether it's actually smoking cessation or whether you're replacing one addiction with another. And if you look at some of the studies, people who've never smoked before, when they use e-cigarette, first-time e-cigarette users, 80% of them switch to conventional cigarettes. They use e-cigarettes as a gateway drug.
What advice then would you give to people who are using e-cigarettes?
Please don't.
While the medical and scientific communities catch up on finding out more about the health effects of vaping, it's probably best not to replace one bad habit with another, if possible.
Well, that said, quitting smoking is really tough. Just recently, more new research into smoking shows that even social smokers might be doubling their chances of an early death.
Yeah, according to Cancer Council Victoria, even researchers were surprised by these findings that show that most smokers who like to light up occasionally or on the odd weekend don't even identify as smokers. They don't think they're at any risk at all, which of course they are, Das.
What it also means, Jo, is that there are anti-smoking campaigns that have missed people who are social smokers, and maybe that part of the sector the message hasn't got through to.
Yeah, the point is that every cigarette does damage, even as few as 6 a month. So why not try some options like gum or patches from your pharmacy? It's a good place to start and it will change your life.
Welcome back. National Diabetes Week kicks off today, and I was surprised to learn, Jo, that this disease affects around 1.7 million Australians. That is a huge number.
Yeah, I was surprised by that too. It does seem really high, but it's the reality. Diabetes is a massive challenge confronting our health system, with type 2 in particular on the rise. So what's the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes? And how did the game changer of insulin first come into the picture? We consulted our doctors past and present for the answers.
Hi and welcome to Medicine, Past, Present and Future. My name's Dr. Nick and I'm the past.
And my name's Dr. Isabel and I'm the future.
And together, we're the
present.
Now, diabetes is such a common disease, it has its own Awareness Week. But actually, it's so common, I believe it should have an entire month just for itself.
Yes, over 1 million people in Australia have diabetes and thousands more probably have it, but have yet to be diagnosed.
But what are we actually talking about? Because it's called diabetes mellitus. Now, mellitus is Latin for honey or sweet, so we know it's got something to do with sugar. But Dr. Isabel, there are two main types, aren't there?
Yep. Type 1 diabetes is the more severe type and the type that you're dependent on insulin for. Type 2 diabetes, less severe, but interestingly, much more common.
We've had diabetes, of course, ever since we've had human beings. And we knew it was something to do with sugar because urine that was left in something like a chamber pot attracted ants because they were attracted to the sweetness. But we didn't know until the late 19th century what the organ was that was involved, and that was the organ called the pancreas.
Oh, now, Dr. Nick, that's the squiggly one that's right at the back of the top of your abdomen?
Yes, squiggly one, the very technical term, Dr. Isabel, yeah, up there at the back. And what they did was they took the pancreas out of a dog and they showed it died of diabetes.
Oh, poor puppy.
And in 1921, some other scientists, Banting and Best, famously took an extract from the pancreas, they injected it into a diabetic dog, and that puppy had its life saved by the hormone that we now know is insulin.
Which has been a godsend for people with type 1 diabetes. But over 90% of people with diabetes have type 2 diabetes.
And the symptoms of type 2 diabetes are two main ones, which is drinking more than usual and passing more urine than usual. But curiously, sometimes there are no symptoms at all. So, Dr. Isabel, if this is a disease which can have no symptoms, why does it matter so much?
I'm really glad you asked me this, Dr. Nick, because essentially in diabetes, what we have is dysregulation of sugar. So, for instance, if you or I were to eat, let's say, a chocolate brownie, our sugar levels should remain relatively stable. In someone with diabetes, the sugar in their blood would rise quite high. Now, that sugar can be toxic to lots of organs, be toxic to your eyes, your kidneys, and your heart.
And this is why we recommend testing people a lot of the time, because you may not have symptoms, and the only way we diagnose this disease is by testing. And we recommend testing particularly if you're over 45 and have a family history, or if you're overweight.
Now, Dr. Nick, you're certainly over 45.
Thanks very much.
When was the last time you had your sugar checked? I think it's about time.
Oh, OK. You're going to do that to me now on camera?
Yep, right now. Put your hands out. Oh, a little bit high, Dr. Nick. 6.9.
Oh, well, I did just have a chocolate brownie before this. I don't have diabetes, but I'd better be a bit more careful.
Yep, I think that's the last chocolate brownie for this week, Dr. Nick.
Maybe for the rest of the month.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nick.
Thank you, Dr. Isabel, I think.
So up to 500,000 Aussies have silent, undiagnosed type 2 diabetes and don't know it yet. So if you're considered high risk or over 40 years old, then get your blood sugar level tested, even if you have no symptoms, Jo.
Of course, our man Luke Hines is a big believer in regulating your blood sugar through clean, healthy eating. And this week he's seeing red by whizzing up an immune-boosting Romesco.
GQ, I love taking culinary inspiration from the places I've travelled around the world. So today I'm going to whip up a charred asparagus with a Romesco, which takes a bit of a Spanish influence.
Heinzie, Spain, we think of sunshine, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, tempranillo, tapas. My feeling about this dish, estoy entusiasmado.
OK, whatever that means, I'd taken that you're a bit excited.
I hope that's what I said, Heinzie, but I'm really amazed to see you making the Romesco sauce because it features very important ingredients that are just fundamental to our immune system, which helps protect us from colds and flu.
So, GQ, to prepare our body to fight that battle, I'm using garlic, which is a bit of a no-brainer because it's fantastic for supporting your immune system, but I'm also using red capsicum, which is packed with vitamin C.
And Heinzie, can you believe that red capsicum has 3 times the vitamin C content as citrus fruits? And as we know, vitamin C is very important for driving immune function, helping protect people from colds and flu and to speed up their recovery.
Well, I tell you what, red capsicum might be the unsung hero of the vegetable world, but it's definitely the hero of this dish, GQ. Now, speaking of which, I've just got to blitz this up. There's definitely other ingredients that people don't often think of when it comes to supporting our immune health, right?
When we look at other countries around the world, Heinzie, let's look at China and Japan. They have there an amazing mushroom called a Shiitake mushroom. Really important, again, for immune function.
Shiitake.
That's not quite what I said, but this is a super mushroom designed to reduce the severity of cold and flu symptoms, speed up our recovery, and it's really helpful for those who seem to get sick often.
So should I head out to my local forest and start foraging some mushrooms, GQ?
There's no point doing that, Heinzie, because shiitake mushrooms are native to Southeast Asia, but thankfully they are available in supplement form.
Well, luckily for us, I have made this sautéed asparagus with a really vibrant Romesco on top, a few almonds, and there you have it.
Delicioso!
Gracias! The A to Z of Vitamins is brought to you by new Ethical Nutrients Immune Fighter. Fight illness this winter with Immune Fighter.
Welcome back. Jo, we've said many times that an absolute lifeline while we've been stuck at home during the lockdown has been our pets. I know my dog Dennis has kept our family sane. Your dog Daisy, you tell me, has never been walked so much, and Heinzie wouldn't survive without his dog Chia. But I have to ask, what's the latest thing Daisy's destroyed at your house? My favourite thing when I catch up with you, whether it's shoes, carpet, might have been a couch at one stage.
She did eat the leather couch. Lately, it was the subwoofer, which is one of my husband's favourite things for the surround sound. So it wasn't a good day for Daisy. Anyway, everyone who has a pet has showered them with so much love during these past few crazy months. And if we ever do have to go back to work, I have to say there's going to be a lot of depressed animals out there going, where are my owners? I don't think Daisy will cope being on her own because who knows what she'll do to the house. We won't have one left.
Well, one of the few upsides of the pandemic, Jo, has been the huge surge in people adopting pets from animal shelters. Pet rescue groups have seen record numbers with thousands of animals finding a new home.
Melbourne's Lord Smith is one of the biggest animal hospitals in the country and rehomes hundreds of animals every year. Heinzie paid them a visit and I'm very interested to see if he was able to walk out of there empty-handed.
With 60 vets and 90 nurses on staff, Melbourne's Lord Smith Centre is the busiest animal hospital in the entire country. But it's also where many pet owners surrender their dogs and cats for adoption.
Whisk, whisk, whisk.
Oh, hello.
Come here. Yeah, so a lot of times the animals come through the hospital because people can't do the care the animal needs post-surgery. So they'll surrender the animal to us, we'll put the animal in foster post-surgery, and then once they're ready, we'll put them up for adoption.
Speaking of foster and adoption, I would love to head to the adoption hub. Can we have a look?
Absolutely.
All right, let's go.
Cool.
Who's that? Oh. What do I smell like? What do I smell like?
Who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Who's that?
I've been here a short amount of time and I'm already struggling to do my job today. How do you guys get anything done?
Well, we have to. If we don't get it done, the animals don't get adopted. So we have to focus and keep working.
Finding new homes for these adorable creatures is usually a challenging task. But over the past few months, with many Aussies in need of company while social distancing, adoption hubs everywhere have been struggling to meet demand.
There's actually an Australia-wide shortage of dogs. You're very hard-pressed to find a dog in a pound in Australia anywhere.
What about the cats?
The cats as well. We've got a 4.5-page waiting list for cats and kittens at the moment. So, yeah, we're lucky we've still got cats coming through. Otherwise, we wouldn't have many animals.
How important do you think having an animal at home and that connection is when people are in these uncertain times?
So important. And for some people, it's their only companion. We have a lot of elderly people that haven't got much connection with the outside world at all, and they really want someone to love.
I'm going to go home with a few today.
I'll check your pockets on the way out.
You will. Who's this adorable fluff ball?
This upside-down dog, or sloth as we call her, is Maggie. Maggie, unfortunately, was used as a breeding dog, and as a result of many, many, many litters, her uterus became inflamed with it, and she had a condition called Pancreas. So she had needed to have her part of her uterus removed and be desexed, and she'll be up for adoption shortly. She's just waiting on a dental now.
With restrictions easing, is there a chance that people who have recently got a pet might feel the need to put them up for adoption with changed circumstances?
Look, yeah, it could happen, but we hope that we've matched people really well with their animals. But we're working with people around the clock. We take lots of phone calls from our community and we're trying to help them nip problems in the bud before they become a real issue. We're putting out information at the moment on how to get ready for returning to work, so the animals that are used to having people home all the time start not social distancing with their owners and just sort of making that transition back to normal life.
One of the thousands of Australians to adopt a pet during lockdown was Leanne Parsons.
I had to put my greyhound Loco to sleep after having had him for 7 years, and I always knew that I would get another pet at some point in time, whether it was a cat or a dog. But with COVID happening, I made the decision a bit earlier and put the feelers out to the Lord Smith about getting a cat.
How much has that company meant to you? Have you had moments where you've been here at home alone and you've just looked at Indy and thought, thank goodness?
Yeah, definitely. As much as the restrictions are lifting, I've been pretty much in isolation since March and living by myself. You do start missing having just any sort of company, and I think he has been a great addition to the household. I definitely don't feel as alone, definitely have something else to talk to, so I'm not going crazy cat lady. And yeah, I just enjoy having that extra body in the house with me during this time.
What happens if someone does adopt a beautiful cat like Indy and they play up at night? They're a little bit naughty and they're jumping on the bed. Any tips?
No, because I let him do it.
Welcome back to the House of Wellness. Here's a fun fact for you, Joe. Australians spend around $22 billion a year on their personal appearance and grooming. Women spend around $15 billion of that, which means blokes account for about $7 billion. That seems about right.
I've got to say, I find that really difficult to believe in this climate of home lockdown because our work for home uniform is basically tracky dacks, dressing gown and Ugg boots. So some of us, I mean only some, might have let a few things go. But let's just say that the waxing salons could be doing a booming business if they're open, that is. But even if they're not, there's a very reliable and convenient way of tackling personal maintenance in the privacy of your own home. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Jake Kisnorbo and I'm all about the latest beauty, hair and makeup trends.
And I'm Polly Harding, and working in radio, I've still got a lot to learn about the beauty biz.
Together, we're going to bust those beauty myths,
strip things back to basics, and learn a few new tricks in the process.
Skin, for so many of us, is where our confidence lies, and it's the first thing that people see. So before I even begin to think about makeup, smooth skin is really important in achieving the perfect base.
So what are we doing today?
We're focusing on any of those fine, unwanted hairs that we may have on our face.
Face fuzz.
Face
Ta-da!
fuzz, yes.
What are this?
So I'm going to introduce you to this amazing device that will give you a flawless finish. The Finishing Touch Flawless is a discreet, effective and painless device that sweeps away any unwanted hairs. You might think it's a mascara, you might think it's a lipstick.
I actually did, is it not?
No, it's so discreet. It's something that you could pop in your makeup bag or your handbag, and it's actually easy to use to get rid of any of those unwanted little hairs.
It's a very snazzy little device. It's quite sophisticated.
It is, isn't it? Well, the head is actually 18 karat gold plated and hypoallergenic. So when you pop it on your face,
you're not going to get a reaction. I'd just be worried that I'd use it wrong. How do you actually do it?
Well, it can be a little overwhelming when anything to do with hair removal.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you just pop it to the area that you want to treat, so say it is around your chin, just in soft circular motions, really softly, and it is as simple as that.
It's actually so easy, and I can already feel how much smoother it is.
The great thing I love about this device is after you've completed the treatment, there's no downtime. There's no redness, no marks, and you're ready to start your beauty look.
And it looks like you're just putting on some concealer. That's
really
the great
does.
thing.
So
you can be out at night and you're like, oh.
I actually didn't think of that, but that is so true. It is so true. Whether it's your face, brows, or legs, this range will make a big impact in removing those unwanted hairs. PJ, how easy was that?
I love it. I didn't even know this existed.
Well, this is the thing. So many people don't know that there are devices like this, and it's easy, it's accessible.
If you need to go out for dinner, you find a hair, you can whip off to the bathroom, and boom, it's gone.
Apparently, the average woman will spend more than 3,000 hours in their lifetime on their appearance, which that kind of breaks my heart. There's better things to do with your time, but do you think that is a lot over the course of a lifetime?
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that's way too much.
That seems like a lot.
Yeah.
I can't say that I would spend anything like that amount of time. Just lucky that it comes naturally.
I know, look at you.
Far from it. It's just not something you're overly concerned. Well, I'm overly concerned about, Joe, but that's a lot of time, isn't it? 3,000. How about Daz? Your better half, I'd call Daz. Is he someone that spends a bit of time on his personal appearance or not?
No, he's very low maintenance, although during lockdown he asked me to cut his hair, which was not a good day for either of us.
How did that go, can I ask?
It was a disaster.
What could possibly go wrong with that, Jack? Well, that's it for today. For more great tips, tricks and advice, head to our website at thehouseofwellness.com.au. And Joe will be hearing the best of you with your brand new podcast with the great Emma Murray.
Yes, it's called Best of You in the House of Wellness, and it's all about helping you bring the best version of you to every situation in your life.
Look forward to that. Tune into the House of Wellness radio show with Joe and GQ every Sunday. And as always, thanks to our great friends at Chemist Warehouse. Stay safe and we'll see you next time.